All right, folks, I appreciate your patience. I know we're running a few minutes behind here. As you might glean from the assembly behind me here, there's many things going on here, many different layers to this. I'm gonna start with a recap, a little bit of things you may already know. I'm gonna offer a little bit of new information. We do have some other folks that have agreed to speak here today. I'm going to start out with just offering our condolences to the families who lost loved ones or who have loved ones fighting for their lives right now in area hospitals. It's been a very long time in the city of Milwaukee since we've had a loss of life this large and with so much potential risk associated with it. I'm going to talk some of the fire stuff here now. Some of it's going to be a little bit technical. I don't mean to sound clinical about it, but Milwaukee Fire Department, Wauwatosa Fire Department, and West Allis Fire Department responded with 148 members to this fire. It's an enormous outlay. It was a fifth alarm fire plus. Just about every area of the city sent rigs over to this. It has been a little bit of a unraveling process to figure out precisely who was where doing what when, because these companies went through 3 and 4 and 5 air cylinders, recycling back into the building to keep this search sustained. But right now, we do know we had 48 rescues over ladder, either ground ladders thrown up by firefighters or via the aerial ladder, the tower ladders. There was a half a dozen hands-on grabs from inside, dragging unconscious folks out to the exterior of the building from upper floors. And there were dozens and dozens that were guided through thick smoke to stairwells so they could self-evacuate, but they were mobile. It's important to point that out. We functioned with a ton of support at this fire. Again, I mentioned West Allis and Wauwatosa. Both of our private ambulance contractors, Curtis and Bell Ambulance, assisted us. We Energy's Electric and Gas, the Milwaukee Fire Bell Club, some of the folks you'll hear from today, the American Red Cross, the Salvation Army. We vacuumed up a huge ton of the city and the county's resources in this effort because the rest of the county floods in then to fill these huge void spaces in our city when we're doing this. So to backfill for those, we can thank partners far outside the county. Sending fire engines to help fill our stations was New Berlin, McGuanago, and Western Lakes. A ladder truck came from the city of Waukesha, a squad company from Kettle Moraine, paramedic units from city of Brookfield and Lake Country, and chief officers from Pewaukee and Brookfield. So this is not a usual occurrence around here, like I said. We do know now there were 5 fatalities. I can't mourn hard enough for that. And we know that there are 6 others in area hospitals. I can tell you that our arrival time was within 3 minutes of the first 911 call, and I think I listed the times off. I won't go through it all again here today, but the escalation of this to a 5th alarm was, that's a fairly rare occurrence. You know, we like to layer it in and have some order to it, but we needed all hands on deck. We needed all hands on ladders, all hands crawling in the hallways. Further on down in this continuum, we have what amounts to a mass casualty incident spread around a building, in a building, being transported to hospitals, on top of a firefight that needs to be sustained in a fire situation where the fire is rapidly extending laterally in the building, vertically across floors, running in the stairwells. One of the means of egress was involved. This is horrible. And so our hearts go out to the lost and the injured. Part of that continuum then is we have a medical control doc for our entire EMS system in the county. That's Doc Weston from Milwaukee County OEM EMS, who came to the scene, as did some of his folks from his area, and started arranging the back end. Do they have enough beds? Do they have enough personnel of the right type to deal with these sorts of injuries or burns? Obviously, we would really love to know exactly what started this fire. It's been a question we've fielded numerous times in the past day and a half. So let me just say this, that the potential for an intentional act cannot be ruled out at this point. What that means is this: we have an assembly of the very best and brightest at cause and origin and investigation that are here doing things exactly the right way, so that if it would tip that way, we haven't misstepped. Nobody has misstepped. So that's why you see these folks gathered here today. I'm going to just say a few quick names so that you're aware of who you're looking at. So thankful to have the Executive Director of the Milwaukee Fire and Police Commission, Lee Todd, here. Extremely thankful to have Captain David Anderson from the Milwaukee Police Department. Our Department of Neighborhood Services Commissioner, Jezamil Vega. From the National Fire Sprinkler Association, Steve Howard. The Acting Assistant Special Agent in Charge from ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, Ryan Arnold. And from the State Department of Criminal Investigation, we have Administrator Jacob Jansky. So these folks are all here. They are working their tails off. I want to acknowledge the frustration with us not being able to just throw a bunch of information up for consumption, but we are necessarily isolating the information so that we don't send an investigation down the wrong road or derail something if something comes to light later on. I've been in constant contact with Mayor Cavalier Johnson on this. He's been monitoring this since day one. He came to the scene on Mother's Day, and he's extremely concerned about the condition of the survivors and how the families are coping with the losses. I think I made no bones about it that this building was built in 1968. It has no sprinklers and no standpipes. There's one tiny little corner of the first floor that's a parking structure that has a run of sprinklers. It's completely separate and distinct from any livable or common area in this building, separate and distinct. There was no sprinklers whatsoever in the area where humans spend most of their time in this building. No standpipes for us to use, meaning we had to hand lay hose lines up to the fourth floor and down extremely long runs of hallway. Just this morning at MATC on 6th and State, we sent a high-rise firefighting assignment over for a report of a fire on the third floor. That's a huge complement of equipment to go to a fire. Would you know, a sprinkler extinguished that fire, so all we had to do was go in and mop it up. 2 engines, 2 ladder trucks, clean up, blow some smoke out, no lives lost. I cannot emphasize with enough force the necessity to have sprinklers if humans are going to occupy a building. I don't stand before you and profess to have all the answers for how that gets done, but I am telling you we don't have this loss of life, this severity of injuries, this amount of property damage if that building is sprinklered. That's my stance, and it's just not gonna change. Also acknowledge Wisconsin State Patrol is also assisting with the ongoing investigation. We're ballparking the building will be available roughly a week. Please don't quote me and look at the calendar. Roughly a week. There's a lot of components to this. There's 85 units, multiple people going different directions, seeing different things, experiencing different things. There's a ton of square footage in this building. I think I told you the other day, it's like 96,000 square feet. There's a ton of area to cover. This is just necessarily going to take time. We're so thankful, and Mark will talk in a few minutes, to have the Red Cross caring for all the occupants. They have shelter. They have access to food, to clothing, medicine. But the question remains, hey, are they going to be able to go back in that building? And it's a great question. The building is not a total loss. It is just currently totally uninhabitable. And so as this investigation carries on, it is completely boarded up and secured. I have heard discussions about additional security because we don't want people fearing for their belongings. These are real people's lives at stake here, and their well-being, and so we're ballparking about a week. And We will have more information about what the investigation yields as we actually determine that information through a variety of sources. I'll be available for questions towards the end of this, but I want to turn it over now to our colleague at OEM EMS, which is Dr. Ben West.
Good afternoon. I want to start by expressing my condolences for the individuals, the families, and our broader community affected by this tragedy. Our medical direction team is from the Office of Emergency Management and the Medical College of Wisconsin. We provide medical oversight to the fire departments in Milwaukee County, including the Milwaukee Fire Department. Per procedure, we were notified early in this event. Two of us, myself and Dr. Tom Growie, responded separately to the event to provide on-scene medical oversight. And one of us, Dr. Tom Engel, remotely talked with Incident Command and with area hospitals and with our EMS Communications Center on patient destinations. Of course, despite all of this, the tragedy occurred. But without the folks from the Milwaukee Fire Department, the firefighters who were running into the fire and pulling people out and saving lives, it would have been a far more tragic event than it was. Anytime an event like this happens, it's important for us to reflect as individuals, as agencies, on what can we learn, what can we do better, how can we improve for the future. But it's also important for, as a community, us to reflect on how can we prevent these sort of issues from occurring in the future, these sort of tragedies. And to be clear, this is preventable. These fires are preventable, as Chief said. Deaths from fires are incredibly preventable. And so for those who are watching this tonight on the news, you're sitting in your living room on your couch, I would encourage you to look around. Look around your house and see, there's one sitting here, see if you have a smoke alarm on your ceiling somewhere in the floor of your house. And if you don't, hit pause on the TV and pick up your phone and call 414-286-8980. That is the phone number for the Milwaukee Fire Department smoke alarm. They will install a free smoke alarm in your house. You could not be more low barrier than that. You call the number, you leave a message, and they will call you back and install a free smoke detector in your house. It can change the entire trajectory of your life, of your family's life, and be life-saving. So that is one preventative measure that everybody, no matter where you live, should have and can have for free, thanks to the Milwaukee Fire Department. Thank you very much. I'll hand it back to Chief Lipsy.
Thanks for that, Doc. Bears mentioning, I don't think I mentioned it, this building did have functioning built-in smoke alarms, and they were sounding, just so everybody's clear. We've got differing reports from different people. Our people were crawling all over this building for a long time. Those alarms were sounding until we shut them off way, way, way after all the emergency had cleared. I'd like to call up next 4th District Alderman Bob Bauman. His number one concern when we first spoke about this was how to take care of the occupants who are left behind. He cares deeply about his constituents, and this happened right in his district. So we're so honored to have him here today.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks, Chief. Yeah, it is personal for me because I live 2 blocks away. Every resident of 2725 West Highland Boulevard are my constituents. And I can certainly say on my behalf and on behalf of the entire Common Council, we have the heartfelt condolences for all the victims, their families, their loved ones, and we'll continue to keep the victims who are still in the hospital recovering in our prayers for a quick and speedy recovery. And I do want to say that you've heard the Chief now several times recite the activities of the Milwaukee Fire Department and Milwaukee Police Department and some of the adjoining agencies. And I just want to say thank you again on behalf of the entire Common Council, on behalf of myself, and on behalf of every citizen of Milwaukee for the heroic actions that your men and women of the Milwaukee Fire Department took Sunday to rescue people as quickly and as safely and as efficiently as possible, to deal with the victims in a very caring and loving way, and to make sure they got care as quickly as they possibly could, while protecting their own well-being and while trying to preserve the building itself. I'm also acquainted with the landlord, who is a part-time resident of the building. It's very rare on the near west side of Milwaukee to see a multi-unit apartment building actually occupied by the landlord. And that's why this building has historically been one of the quietest buildings in the entire west side of my district. We've never received complaints from tenants, or we've never received complaints from neighbors about the tenants. And even my own neighbors here in Concordia, when word went out that there was a major fire at 2725, they themselves mobilized and gathered together snacks, beverages, water, as best they could, and rushed over to the scene to try to provide whatever help they were able to do. So truly an act of neighborly love and kindness, and I respect those neighbors deeply for that. And I just wanted to also mention on the issue of sprinklers, that has come up, and I'm sure it will continue to come up. I've introduced a file today, a communication file, that is requesting that the Department of Neighborhood Services, Milwaukee Fire Department, the City Attorney's Office provide a communication to the Zoning, Neighborhood, and Development Committee, and that'll be on May 28th, so we can drill down to exactly what codes apply, when did they apply, to what extent can we retroactively require sprinklers in buildings that were grandfathered, what are the legal issues surrounding grandfathering. There's a lot of complication to this issue. There's multiple codes involved. There's a uniform dwelling code involved. There's the International Building Code involved. What I can say with a fair level of certainty is all of this is legislated and regulated at the state level. As far as I can tell, at this point, the city has absolutely no ability to independently, on our own initiative, enact legislation, enact rules, enact regulations that would retroactively require sprinklering a building of this size or any size involving multi-unit. It's primarily a state-level issue, and interestingly enough, as part of our legislative package, every year the council approves a legislative package, which is what our lobbyists in Madison are basically instructed to advocate for. And in that legislative package is a very specific provision that urges our lobbyists to legislate for changes to these sprinkler requirements, to basically require retroactive application. So I encourage everyone to attend that meeting on the 28th. And again, it's a very complicated process involving legal issues, policy issues, regulatory issues, different types of different codes, different levels of code, and we hope to get to the bottom of what is the history of this whole issue of sprinklering and what can be done to make sure incidents like this do not happen again. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Alderman Baumann. Sticky legal issues at play here, right? I'm the fire chief in the city of Milwaukee. I have zero statutory authority over code violations, over inspections, planning. This is very unique for a major urban fire department to not have the fire chief with actual legal authority in this regard. I am blessed in the city of Milwaukee because the Department of Neighborhood Services, under the current commissioner and the previous few commissioners, has been very, very open to having very real conversations. And they include me in a whole bunch of stuff you really don't have to. So we do the best with what we can. An interesting thing for you to look into would be why the state of Wisconsin does not have a state fire marshal. So it all plays in. It's a big tangled mess here. My next person at the podium here is the executive director of the American Red Cross of Wisconsin here, and that is my friend and colleague Mark Thomas.
Thank you, Chief. Thanks for allowing me to be here. I appreciate all of you being here too, so we can just, as the doctor said, amplify the message on fire safety. We can save more lives by having people understand and partake in fire safety. We're all going to be doing something for our community. Let me start by also conveying my thoughts with those that are affected by this tragedy. As Chief mentioned, this is one of the larger fires that we've had to deal with in quite some time. And anytime there's loss of life, it impacts many, and our thoughts are with all of those impacted. So what happens under a normal circumstance when there's a fire, and the Milwaukee Fire Department assesses the situation and they recognize that there'll be people that are displaced, a call is made to the American Red Cross. And that's what happened Sunday morning. And we were out there within the first couple of hours working with the folks that were displaced. They were taken across the street to a reception center at a church, and then we opened up a shelter on Sunday afternoon. And so we opened up a shelter at Holler Park, which is at 5151 South 6th Street, and we want to thank Milwaukee County for making that building available. And again, prior to that, they were at the Bethesda Church as they were awaiting information and the outcome. The shelter's open on Sunday afternoon. It's still open, and it'll be open for some time to come. And right now, there are 29 people that stayed at the shelter last night. So over 100 people displaced, but not all of them needed the services of the shelter. And so they had other places to go, friends, family. But 29 people were there last night. And those numbers can fluctuate on any given night, up or down, because someone who may have had a place to go Sunday and Monday may not have a place to go Tuesday and Wednesday. And they will be welcome at our shelter. Our volunteers and our staff are on site 24/7, providing them with health care, comfort kits. There's showers at the location, 3 meals a day. They actually have a television. I was out there this morning, they were watching television and trying to make the best of, as you can only imagine, a very challenging and traumatic situation. American Red Cross is providing food, health, mental health services, spiritual care, and we're working with community partners like Freighter Health and Aurora Health to work with those residents who have medical needs. And I saw nurses meeting with people individually, taking temperatures and talking about medical history and trying to locate pharmacies throughout the community to get those medications. And that will happen. That's a normal existence. There's been a lot of questions around donations. People want to know, how can they help? So right now, if you'd like to donate, what we're saying is it's too early in the situation. We haven't seen what's going on inside the building, so we don't know what needs have to be met. And so, again, food, shelter, medication is current. We have a couple of folks with pets, and they're allowed to be there. But later, there may be things that people can help with. But right now, monetary donations is probably what's going to be the most in need as we continue to buy things like food. WISN has set up a microsite, and people can go to that microsite. It's www.redcross.org/donate, and they can make a donation to our disaster relief efforts. Again, we're not going to be accepting any clothing at this time, and I know a lot of people have wanted to drop off clothes and household items. It just isn't appropriate at this time because we don't know what we need, and we don't know what we don't know. There are other nonprofits throughout the community. If people do want to make a donation, I can tell you that people with children are going to need diapers. So if someone wants to make a donation to the diaper mission, they can feel free to do that. People are going to need food. If they want to go to a local food pantry, make a donation, they can do that. There are still people that are hospitalized. They can always go and donate blood. We will continue to provide updates, and as we get access into the building and we transport those residents back, then we will have a more finite list of things that people can bring. But at this time, we're asking the community, please don't bring any clothing or food items to either the Red Cross or to the shelter, because right now we're overwrought with people that are just working on the basics. And I'll be around later for additional questions also. Thanks.
A lot of moving parts here, so I don't want to slight anybody, but we also had assistance from Milwaukee County Transit Services. They came right to the scene to get people off the street and away from the noise and a chance to just take a breath, so thank you to them. The final person I'll bring up here to say something before we open up to questions is our host here today, the Executive Director of Near West Side, Lindsay St. Arnold Bell, reached out right away. It's just down the street from where this tragedy happened. What can we do? How can we help? I lied. She's the second last person. But I said, listen, we need a space we can go that isn't out in the middle of a road and isn't at a fire station. We need like a neutral spot that is all about dedication to the community. This was the spot. So thank you so much for opening your doors.
Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us here in the Near West Side. Near West Side partners and the entire Near West Side community is devastated by the loss of life and the loss of homes that happened on Sunday during the tragic fire. We're sending our thoughts and our prayers with everyone who is affected, the family and friends of the neighbors that we lost, the neighbors who are still in recovery, and those who are dealing with the aftermath. as well as our first responders who were there and dealing with that tragedy day of. We really want to extend our heartfelt thanks to the Milwaukee Fire Department and all of the emergency personnel who were there on that day. Their swift response, their long hours, their caring really helped to contain the fire and then saves the lives of so many. And without their quick action, we could be dealing with something far more tragic. Milwaukee Fire Department is active in our community every single day, usually not dealing with anything quite as extreme as this fire, but every day they show up and they are heroic in their efforts, and we are so grateful for them. The Near West Side is a well-connected and resilient community, and you saw that in person on Sunday with neighbors helping neighbors, running to support. And we are committed to standing with those as they begin the recovery process. During this time, we will be working with our neighbors and with our landlords to ensure that while statutory issues are being explored, they are in homes that are as fire safe as we can make them. And we encourage our neighbors to continue to look out for one another. Anyone in need of assistance, please work with the Red Cross, and please come see us here at Concordia 27. We have a variety of services to help deal with the trauma and of the aftermath of this event. It's moments like this that the strength of our community really shines through, so we encourage everybody to continue to support one another with compassion and with action. And I just want to, again, thank everyone who is there with their quick response, to Alderman Bauman for taking such good care of his constituents here, and send, again, my deep felt thoughts and prayers to those who are currently recovering from this fire. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. The last person, certainly not least, but one of the doctors at Ascension Columbia St. Mary's Hospital. This is, as you know, this is the burn hospital. This is where we take the most serious of burn injuries. And they were certainly busy Sunday morning, and they remain busy right now. And so I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Jonathan Zlabik. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dr. John Zlabik. I'm the Chief Medical Officer at Ascension Columbia St. Mary's Hospital in Milwaukee. 8 patients presented to our hospital Sunday morning as a result of the fire. Some of these patients were treated for smoke inhalation, and some required care at the hospital's regional burn center. And our associates did an outstanding job caring for these patients. Though tragic, incidents such as Sunday's fire bring forth our hospital's full scope of capabilities and our associates' depth of knowledge, passion, and unique skills to deliver world-class care. The Regional Burn Center at Ascension Columbia St. Mary's Hospital in Milwaukee is one of only 2 regional burn centers in the state and has state-of-the-art resources in advanced treatment and caring for severe and life-threatening burns. And to anyone watching this who was involved in the fire, if you or someone you know was burned and has not yet received treatment, or if you're experiencing lingering effects from smoke inhalation, such as persistent coughing or shortness of breath, please come to the hospital and get checked out right away. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doc. I'll close kind of the prepared statement portion of this with just again extending my admiration for the men and women of the Milwaukee Fire Department who had way more wins than losses, and that is not to marginalize or diminish how horrible the losses are in this. It could be so much worse but for the actions of our early arrivers and the sustained action of everybody that came later. So we'll take some questions now, and I'll jump backwards to something I said earlier that as frustrating as it is, we're not going to be able to give a whole bunch of details about the exact cause right now, just so you know.
Well, Chief, yesterday we saw the ATF, we saw the fire marshals going in and out of the building. What type of work were they doing as they worked to determine the cause of this fire?
That's a great question. So it follows the scientific process. They're going to work from the outside and then in, honing in on those areas that present themselves as the worst. What they're really trying to do is locate the origin. And then at that point, what caused it to start? And so, again, as you might imagine, with tons of fleeing occupants all experiencing and seeing different things, it takes a long time to get through all that. But there's also the physical collection of evidence. When I say evidence, I don't want that to imply criminal evidence, just evidence of fire cause and origin. It is a sneaky thing, fire investigation, because a ton of the evidence burns away. So when it's so expansive and covering so much square footage like this, it just takes time.
You said that may be out of the building for maybe a week for residents. Is that because of the danger inside, or is it the investigation of water?
Great question. A little bit of both. We have obviously the investigation. To do that right, we need to isolate the building. But then we also have water damage. There is no gas or electric to the building at present. So it just would not be a good spot for people to try to get back to. And there will be an area of the building that even after the rest would open up, there are chunks of the building that sustained such serious fire damage. Those units wouldn't be inhabitable, but the structure itself appears to be sound.
Sometimes people are allowed in with an escort or something, just get car keys or medication or that type of thing. Do you anticipate perhaps that, even if they're not allowed to get back in the next few days?
That would be something that would start up after that roughly week estimated time.
And you said at this point, the potential for the fire being essentially that can't be moved out. Is there any cause that can be moved out at this point?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say no, based on what I know about it. There's a lot going on here, a lot of dynamics. We can't rule anything out, which is, with such a huge loss of life, it's just critical that we get it by the numbers, and it's a painstaking process.
Chief, a question for both you and for Alderman Bowman, if you could. Today, the Capitol Assembly Speaker Rob Moss was asked directly about updating state code and state law to apply sprinklers to outdated buildings. One of the quotes that he gave, I'll read you briefly: "We have to be careful about overreacting to a single or unfortunate incident." Is this an overreaction to require sprinklers after a fatal fire? And how would you encourage the speaker or others who might be against it to, in fact, put this in place?
Well, I guess what I'd say is, I don't know that his statement on its own implies that he's against it. I think what he's against is an overcorrection. That being said, I'm the fire chief, and sprinklers save lives. And should it be something that everybody wants to pursue, they'd be wise to do that, because with 5 people already deceased from this, and please talk with your subject matter experts, your fire chiefs. Yeah, there's a ton of issues with how our state adopts codes or doesn't, how they don't update codes, right? There's a ton of issues with that. A lot of it goes back to my earlier question about why doesn't the state of Wisconsin have a state fire marshal? Alderman?
I appreciate the speaker's comments. I think we need to get to the bottom of exactly what the history is of this regulatory process, what has led us to this point, the grandfathering, what is the policy behind grandfathering? Is it something mandated by law? That building code changes only are prospective and not retrospective? There's a lot of moving parts here. As I said, there's at least 2 different building codes that are potentially implicated, that the state has adopted, both of them that apply in different circumstances. So I think we have to sort out all the facts before we can call Mr. Voss's comments maybe also a little bit on the extreme side. Because, again, as you've heard from the fire experts here, these types of incidents are preventable. And to the extent we can do so, we should certainly explore it. I'm sure Mr. Voss is referring to the potential cost of retrofitting in the city of Milwaukee literally hundreds of multi-unit buildings at potentially substantial 6-figure or larger cost per building. That could have an impact, could increase rents in a community that's already heavily rent overburdened. So those are factors that need to be considered, but the preservation of life, I think, should be paramount. And I'm sure we'll have the opportunity to remind the speaker of that value at some point.
Chief,
Yes.
from the landlord that accelerants may have been used, is that a
can't. Even if we were operating on that suspicion, it's not something we can declare. We'd have to gather evidence. We're gathering evidence right now. We'd have to send it off to a lab and have it actually declared to be an accelerant. It's not something we can just hunch. I'd be interested to, and I'm certain the investigators would be interested to understand why that is the belief, because we want all the information.
And did you know about this grandfather law? And did you have any opinion about it prior to this? Is this kind of like the worst fear that you suspected and you didn't know about this?
Yeah, so I think I know where you're coming from with your question. And the Wisconsin State Fire Chiefs Association, the National Fire Sprinkler Association, the International Association of Fire Chiefs, the Metro Fire Chiefs, the IAFF have been leaning on people in our state and around this country to get moving on sprinklers. Let me tell you what that's gotten us. What it's gotten us is, go back about 11, 12 years ago, the law overnight changes, the code overnight is reinterpreted so that if you're building an apartment building, it doesn't have to have sprinklers unless it exceeds 20 units. That was a change from 3 units. We went up to Madison and exploded, no pun intended. That's wildly irresponsible. And we just, in the past probably 2 years, 1.5, 2 years, got it changed back so that if it's more than 3 units, it must be sprinklered. It's all wrapped up in the grandfather clause. It's all wrapped up in the general concept of sprinklers. So yes, I was aware of it beforehand, and yes, we've been fighting as strenuously as we possibly can to get this corrected.
That 1-year-old baby, burn injuries, smoke injuries, can you let us know how that 1-year-old is doing?
I have absolutely no idea who released ages or names. It wasn't us, and we can't comment on specifics.
For either of the doctors, maybe the status of the others, we're talking about no update. Is there potential that there could be a greater loss of life at this point? We talked about 5 fatalities in that row.
I can say that out of respect for the patients' families, we're not going to comment on that at this time. I can say that we have a world-class burn center, one of the oldest in the country, that provides outstanding care.
Chief, is there any information regarding the time of the fire? Or did you guys be involved with how long the fire happened?
I think that'll bear itself out in the investigation, but I don't have hard and fast information. We were, it's not state secret, we were communicated with by people who said the second they observed smoke, they called 911. So I have to believe it wasn't that long, but I don't have an exact time.
I know the investigation's ongoing. Has anybody been arrested in connection with this?
Not that I'm aware of, I don't believe so.
Chief, I know you said the potential for potential acts cannot be ruled out, but I mean, is this fire suspicious? Can you do that right now?
So from the fire department's point of view, we can determine origin and in some cases cause, but until we rule out a whole bunch of stuff, scientific methodology, we cannot state with certainty it's one thing or the other. I think suspicious may be the wrong word, but the loss of 5 lives and a number of other folks critically injured, I don't know if we can replace the word suspicious with just gravitas, like the importance of recognizing this loss of life with a thorough investigation is where we are right now.
Chief, let's see, what kind of fire regulations do buildings before 1973 have to have in place to give more fire safety?
That'd be kind of it's kind of a long list. Things were built kind of how our grandfathers built stuff and great-grandfathers built stuff back in the day. So it was a ton of brick and mortar. There was, we're still living with these buildings right now, obviously. We're dying in some of the buildings. I did a scan of all the high-rise buildings in the city of Milwaukee proper, approximately, this would be about 6-7 years ago, as part of, we reimagined how we were doing high-rise firefighting and updated it. And at that time, approximately 70% of Milwaukee's residential high-rises were built before 1974. So it was dealer's choice if anybody put sprinklers in. And we've had 2 fatals right off, Brady Street at high-rise buildings in the past 2 years, unsprinklered. So, you know, we learn and we evolve, right? And that's a huge part of how we evolve in the fire service and in fire codes is, sadly, it's based on learning from things that really didn't work real well. And I think we've learned an awful lot since 1974. I can't say it enough. Sprinklers save lives.
This is perhaps a question for the city or DNS, but at this point, do you have an exact number of how many buildings are part of that grandfather clause where they do not have sprinklers at this point?
So we're seeking the same information probably for the same reasons. In the database, it would be a relatively simple pivot table or whatever you want to say to pull that information out. I don't have numbers for you right now. Commissioner Arroyo Vega.
Good afternoon. Jesamil Arroyo Vega, Commissioner for the Department of Neighborhood Services, Chief of Building Inspection. And right now, we are assessing how many of those buildings, we call them actually existing non-conforming conditions. We try not to use the grandfather word, so I just wanted to kind of give you a heads up of what we're doing. So I have some bullet points that I will be able to share about what are building codes, what are the requirements, and where we are standing right now. In regards to your question, we are currently right now analyzing how many of those buildings are out there right now, and we look forward to the ZND and communication file that we'll be having in May 28 with all that information. So the Department of Neighborhood Services offers its deepest condolences to the families and friends to those who tragically lost their lives in the fire, as well as all the individuals injured and displaced. DNS have received questions regarding the code compliance of the building. To remove confusion on code enforcement of this property, here are a few bullet points for this subject. As an agent of the State of Wisconsin Department of Safety and Professional Services, the Department of Neighborhood Services conduct plan reviews, permit issuance, and building code inspections in the city of Milwaukee. Existing buildings like 2725 West Highland Boulevard are inspected by DNS for compliance with fire codes and building safety codes in a yearly manner. The residential area of this building permit for this property was submitted in 1968 with an occupancy of 1970. The building did not have a fire sprinkler system inside the residential area, as it was not a building code requirement at the time of construction. This is considered an existing non-conforming condition. In 1974, building code was altered to require the installation of sprinkler system in new residential construction, additions, and alterations. The building has been in continual, this particular building has been in continual use as a multifamily apartment complex since opening. That means they have never been shut down. That means they have never gone to a major alteration that will require or trigger the compliance of a sprinkler system. It does have a fire alarm system because in the 60s that was still required. Any level 3 alteration, this means extensive renovations where the work area exceeds 50% of the building total area, or additions after 1974 will require sprinklers. But again, in this kind of property was not the case. The complex garage has a fire sprinkler system. You might ask why. Because in the 60s, anything that would have storage of flammables and potentially other kind of storages that will be at high risk of fires required the fire sprinkler system. So that's why the discrepancy or the misunderstanding of why the garage and not the residential area. So I hope that this is clarifying a little bit of the questions that have been arised before. In regards to the annual inspections, DNS conducted all the annual inspections for 2025, and we observed no violations in this building whatsoever. So far, all our records show that there was no violations related to life safety inspections or fire safety conditions. Yesterday, we conducted an initial condemnation case, and the inspectors will complete the inspection once MPD allowed us to entry after the completion of the investigation. The City of Milwaukee building codes governing sprinklers is determined by the state of Wisconsin, which currently adopts the International Code Council Building Codes. We are right now in the 2015 code. Questions regarding this legislatively or code changes need to be worked through the Wisconsin State Legislature and the Department of Safety and Professional Services bodies. With an active investigation at this property, DNS cannot answer any further questions, but I'm hoping that at minimum is clarifying the conditions and the requirements of fire alarm and sprinkler systems in this building. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Sir?
The law enforcement partners that are here able to speak to us about the investigation, why they're here?
I will 100% leave that to them, not to put them on the spot, but I'll go ahead and speak for them and tell them you're probably going to hear a lot of no comment, or we're not able to say, but I'll let you, I don't want to get in your way on that.
I'm just going to say on behalf of the Milwaukee Police Department, we have our condolences too. But as far as the investigations, just like the fire chief said, there's stuff we're looking into. We have not made any determination. I know we're working with ATF, we're working with DCI, and we're also working with the fire department investigators to try to get to the root cause of what happened. So, but there'll be more updates later on.
Is that standard for them to be involved in this because of the loss of life? Is there anything to be ready to the fact that ATF is here or DCI?
I would look at it as just standard. This is a major event, like the fire chief mentioned. This is not something that's happened, so we're just looking at that. We've got all the people, we've got experts that are on this. I know for a fact that the detectives and ATF and DCI people involved in this are people that have worked extensively on this type of investigation, and they're the right people to have, along with the fire department.
Did the Milwaukee Police Department reach out to those partners and bring them in, or as soon as this happened, did they leave and get out?
So this is obviously a high visibility situation. It's right at an intersection, major thoroughfares. We actually bring the ATF and DCI in with some regularity at the fire department's request, just because of capacity and technical things that they can do that we just don't have the ability to do. So it's been hard to like say no, we can't tell you what we know right now, because I want to be able to tell you everything that I could possibly know, but we don't know enough to be able to say anything definitively. So the loss of life, to get back to that, the loss of life is really, for us, we're like, let's bring in all the big guns, no pun intended. So I really appreciate your interest in this, and let's get smoke alarms and sprinklers in these buildings. So thank you.